Drew, I know you had UNC last year going to the Final Four, which was a great handicap. Do you see any team in this year's tournament that you think could fit that profile?
Man, UNC was pretty special because at least I thought they were sort of perfectly situated against a truly vulnerable one-seeded Baylor team in a really weak region, right? Last year, you could call out a couple of pretty soft paths for good teams like Kansas. You could call out, which were the regions of death. And as I look at kind of the landscape of this bracket, I would say the West to me looks like the region of death. You have, sort of your two true blue playing very well, absolutely capable of winning a title, 3 and 4 seed in Gonzaga and UConn, as well as, the Kansas, your defending champions, and, a lot of pedigree. And UCLA, who's, outside of injuries, is just as dangerous as any team in the entire bracket. So your top 4 in the West look absolutely unbelievable. And then I would say, the East looks chalky to me. I don't see a lot of potential surprises there, at least in week 1. And then so if I'm looking for uncertainty, if I'm looking for a team to potentially surprise and make it to round 2, I'm looking at the South and I'm looking at the Midwest. And the South, the team that double-digit seed that really stands out to me, at least with path and strength and current form, all around, is Utah State. I think the Aggies are surprisingly dangerous as a 10 seed. That this Arizona team, congratulations for winning the Pac-12 championship. They are flawed. And I think Utah should be more meaningful favorite over Missouri than the current market makes them. And at that point, very live to get to the Sweet 16 over Arizona. And then you have potentially a flawed 3 seed in Baylor as your Sweet 16 opponent, if Baylor even gets there. So nice path for, I think, Utah State to potentially get to the Elite 8. And, with the way that, Alabama has some inconsistencies, particularly defensively, particularly creating turnovers, that is sort of the red flag I have with a lot of the higher seeded teams, because if you come up against a team that's shooting well and, you can't create turnovers to get some free baskets to, make up a margin, then, you're pretty much, you've put yourself in a very, very, perilous situation. And as we look at Alabama's performance over the season, one of the worst teams in college basketball at creating turnovers on defense. And so that red flag, I think, keeps me off of Alabama. And I don't know that Utah State would be my pick to necessarily go to the Final Four, but I think, them making a deep run and being sort of the surprise this year would be, a reasonable expectation.
I did bet Utah State in the first round game against Missouri. It is worth noting the Mountain West, not the best when it comes to March. So I'm a little worried about some of these schools here. We'll talk about all of them as we move along in the show today. Drew, want to get your thought on Purdue? I labeled it in hour number 1 of the show, the Purdue conundrum this year, where it feels like no one's taking Purdue to come out of the East region. People might like Duke. People might like one of the 8-9 schools, but basically not Purdue. I haven't seen one person say they like Purdue to get to the Final Four. And I can understand why, right? The team can't beat the press. They melt out at the ends of games. It's a Matt Painter coach team, but it does feel like this Purdue team's a little different than the Painter teams of the past. What are you doing here, Whale, with what I am calling the Purdue conundrum, where I kind of want to take them to go to the Final Four? I don't know if I myself, though, can pull that trigger.
Yeah. Purdue to me is an absolute stay away. It was kind of a matter of who can, who is going to be the beneficiary of getting matched up against the 1 seed in Purdue. And honestly, you could pretty much pick any one of 4 teams in their region as the, as sort of the beneficiaries of this. Purdue, I think, is, people are cold on them for, the narrative reasons you stated, and for the data reasons of even, I kind of mentioned the red flag about Alabama being very weak at creating turnovers on defense. Purdue is like among the worst that we've ever seen. Like, this is the 330th ranked team in tempo adjusted ability to create turnovers. That is horrifically poor. Like, I really, really do not know how Purdue closes a gap if they are down, against a team that is having a good day shooting. And to make matters worse, they are opening the door for challengers to surprise them because they play at such a slow pace. 330th paced team in the tempo in all of college basketball. So they're already giving underdogs more of a chance by shortening the game. And then on top of that, if the underdog is shooting well, I don't know how you close the gap. You look at the offense, and sure, it's a top 10 efficiency adjusted for strength of opponent in the country, but they really rely way too heavily on contributions from Zach Edey. 7'4", he's a junior, but he is, stands alone as sort of the only guy that you can really count on to get offense for you, going for you. So huge issues and questions about how that team sustains winning. And I think that opens the door for the winner of Memphis, Florida Atlantic. I think it opens the door for the winner of Duke, Tennessee. And if either of those teams fail to pull off the upset, then I'm still more inclined to believe in the likes of the Marquettes and the Kansas States, or even the Kentuckys of the world, if that ends up being your Elite Eight matchup. So Purdue ultimately getting to the Final Four out of this region where, kind of the good teams, have true class. That would surprise me the most of any of the one seeds.
Drew, how do you handicap a team like UConn, who has the profile of a team that's built to go deep, but the coach with Hurley is a big red flag, especially the two potential coaches he could get in the first couple matchups, right? Patino in round one, maybe Randy Bennett in round two, Bill Self down the road. How do you handicap that when the team is really good, but you're worried about the coach?
It's a very fair question, and I have never really given much pedigree to coaches in March Madness because it is sort of a one and done type of environment.
Not
I
this
feel like
moron, especially Danny Hurley was the worst.
But it's if this, NBA and particularly best of seven type of series, any type of, you got multiple opportunities against the same opponents, and you have to be able to strategize and kind of figure out the right lineups, and you have to be able to try different things, and you have to solve a puzzle, basically. That, I think, is where coaching tends to matter a lot more than in the at tournament time. Like, we've had really, really good coaches who cannot get over the hump. It took forever for Tony at UVA to do it. We're still waiting for Mark Few to figure out the key to the puzzle. And I think realistically, it's just because of the nature of the one and done. It's just a little more random. You just need your guys to play good in the big games. And to me at least, it's figuring out the West is a heck of a lot more about looking at matchups between the likes of Connecticut and Kansas, which I think is a pretty clear 1-4 Sweet 16 matchup. Although, UConn, not an easy first round opponent with Iona. I think Iona has been a very, very hot side from some of the professionals that I've talked to at 9.5 points. So if you can still get that, I think I would put that in my pocket. But assuming they get past Iona, Connecticut, decent second round matchup, and then matches up well against Kansas. They, maybe they're hanging a little bit too much of their success on the hat of, just one big upset against Alabama earlier in the year when Alabama wasn't quite as good of a team. But still, I think you can look at some of the highs from the Connecticut season and feel like this team is absolutely in the mix to produce a level of play that can beat the likes of the Kansases and the UCLAs of the world. But Gonzaga, to me at least, is the one that I'm having the biggest trouble finding any kind of true flaws. They pretty rested team. Their conference tournament has given them some time to really kind of get right here in terms of where it fell on the schedule. And now they're playing in Sacramento, then Las Vegas. So it's pretty light travel for them. A lot of West Coast teams, a lot of West Coast games are going to have a lot of crowd support, particularly in Vegas. And so I think realistically, the tournament committee did UCLA no favors. They did Kansas no favors. And I think Gonzaga might be the team that ultimately comes out of the West.